What's going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS core plays for this week's RBC Heritage. It's an elevated field, gonna have a lot of the studs there. A few have backed out late. You got Rory, Billy Z, who aren't going to be teeing it up, but still one of the better fields that will have the entire season, and one that enticed me to go out there, and I'll be there for all 4 days of action. In fact, I'll also be there for the practice round Wednesday, so trying to get a little bit of insight, some boots on the ground, insider access for everyone out there this week, and really looking forward to the action. But here in this video specifically, going to break down the top end of the Draftkings pricing board in 4 of my core plays for this week that I have my eye on for some of these large field contests. Now, last week at the Masters, these core plays were not really the best. They were suboptimal, one of the worst weeks we've had so far, but hey, that just means we have a lot of room to bounce back, and this week I'm looking to go out there, give you guys a few winners out there, and hopefully lead to some top-end performances in GPPs. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this thing rocking. As we typically do here, let's take a look at our key stats to get an idea of the sort of metrics I'm using to identify these top plays. And I'll say last week, though our core plays here were a little bit off, Rory, obviously JT were a little bit sketchy there. Overall, the player pool modeling was fantastic. We did have John Rahm in the player pool. Brooks Koepka, of course, a value play, nearly brought us home an outright bet there too. But top 5, top 10 galore out there, nearly brought home a few GPPs. So modeling was there, and we've got a similar course. So when you take a look at some of these key stats, I'd say the one real differentiator would be driving accuracy. Around Augusta, wide open off the tee, some of the larger corridors that you'll have in terms of your driving dispersion. But here at the RBC Heritage, some of the tighter fairways. It's truly a Carolina coastal woodland style track where you have dense forested areas just off the fairway. So driving accuracy a little bit more important here than most weeks, but it's all about those wedges. I'd say, you know, maybe another difference is that wedges a little bit more prominent at this course than what you had over there at Augusta National. Was a little bit more long iron heavy, of course, there at the Major Championship, but at a course just under 7,200 yards, a majority of the par 4s, at least the more scoreable par 4s, you're going to have 125 yards and in. Also looking at around the green, this is a course with extremely small greens. They're only rated around 3,700 square foot, so you're going to see a lot of around the green shots. In terms of your shots gained putting, I'm looking at shots gained putting on Poa Trivialis, good drive percentage, another way to look at players that can keep themselves in play. And in terms of your comp courses, you know, I think courses under 7,200 yards are a good place to start, but to get a little bit more specific there, they've got the Sea Island courses, Plantation and Seaside, Waialae Country Club, home of the Sony Open, and also got the Players Championship course, TPC Sawgrass, on there as well. So with that in mind, you know, driving accuracy around the green, we're looking for players that are more plotters, right? And you'd say, oh, well, Matt Kuchar, guys like Webb Simpson probably win all the time here, and you'd be correct, right? Those sort of players are the players you consistently see up there in the top 5, top 10. And though over the years, field strength has varied around this event. I know in 2020 it was the strongest field this event has ever had. That's only going to be eclipsed by this year's event, which is part of the reason I'm going out there here in 2023. But even in 2020, guys like Kuchar, Webb Simpson, who ended up winning the golf tournament, those plotter type of players still got up there towards the top of the board. So you're looking at a horses for courses kind of track, and really it's all about those wedges, and then you're putting on these greens. So this week you do have a Poa Trivialis overseed. That's why I was looking at those numbers over there on the key stats tab. Very similar to what we've seen 6 of the last 7 weeks. So you had it there at Scottsdale, the Amex, 2 out of the 3 Florida Swing events. You had it over there at the Valero Texas Open. So we have a relatively large sample size on it that we can draw a lot of these stats from. So have it on here for our plays, and you'll see I'm getting back to Scotty Scheffler, which shouldn't be surprising, right? He won over there at the Players Championship for his career on this Poa Trivialis overseed. It's his best surface. He gains over 1/3 of a stroke per round. In fact, you know, obviously been lighting it up of late, right? That's why he's on this stretch of golf, why he's the #1 model ranking here. But if you take a look at some of the comp courses, you know, he doesn't have a ton of experience at the Sony Open, right? Hasn't played there. But at Sea Island, over there for the RSM Classic, finished in 5th place in 2019. So that was the really, the defining factor for me taking Scottie Scheffler, is I don't think he has a knack, or at least a reputation, for taking apart these short courses. But when you look at the shots gained under 7,200 yards, he's still gaining over 2 strokes per round. And that's over I believe it was like a 32 round sample size. So it's not like he's played a ton of those short courses. I think he knows the longer courses suit his game a little bit better. But when he's hitting the irons as well as he is, right? Let's look at the last 24 rounds, gaining over a stroke per round in that category. Over the last 12 rounds, which we know have been excellent, right? Still gaining over a stroke per round with the iron play. That's only matched by somebody like Jon Rahm, who of course won at the Masters. You take a look at the last 24 rounds, he's actually gaining more strokes on approach than a Jon Rahm. I don't think you can go wrong up top, but what I like about Scottie Scheffler is it feels like he's going to go a little bit under the radar this week. Now, by under the radar, I'm not talking about him being 15% owned, right? I think he'll be about 20, maybe 25% owned. But in this sort of field, you could argue that with his form, the fact that he's tied for first, well, actually he's $100 less expensive than Jon Rahm out there, that he should be 30% chalk, particularly because there's no Rory McIlroy now. He could be 30, 35% owned, right? Because you're taking one of those big 3 out, and I'm not sure he's going to get to that level of chalk. So it's early on a Monday. It's hard to really make all these determinations or project these ownership numbers that are going to, obviously change a lot over the next few days. But I'm hoping that Scottie Scheffler's maybe a little bit more sneaky than, at least sneaky, kind of like I'm hoping for, and can be a really solid GPP play for us. Take a look at the event history. Has not played here. Not surprising, right? It's not really his sort of style of golf course, but we know the form is there, right? Top 10 of the Masters, won the Players, T4 there at API, and the shots gained metrics, as we looked at before, are just outstanding. So I don't think I need to sell you too much on a Scottie Scheffler. I guess the more important thing was looking at those RSM Classic numbers, because those 2 courses, it's the Plantation and the Seaside course. Remember, it's a 2-course rotation over there, are both extremely similar to what you're going to get this week here at Harbour Town Golf Links. So that's why I was looking at that as, almost like event history. So I know he doesn't have that event history, but outside of the top 5 finish, he had a T5 there. Then he also made the cut, and I think finished in like 47th place, if memory serves me correctly, which obviously isn't ideal, but that was 2-3 years ago, so we can give him a little bit of a pass. Next up, we've got Collin Morikawa, who has a T7 finish at this event. Should have won in 2021, was in the final group. Last year, T26. There in 2020, at least made the cut when he was a rookie out there on tour. And of late, has been striping the irons, right? Is getting back to his identity, which off the tee is never going to be an elite of the elite level off the tee player, but he's going to hit more fairways than pretty much everyone else out there. He's a top 5, top 10 accuracy player and gets it out there above average with the distance, right? He can still carry it 305 yards. He's just not going to get it out there Scottie Scheffler, Jon Rahm long. So Collin Morikawa, I like that he's getting back to that identity. Around the green play, slightly above average. He's gotten a lot better with that over the last 2 or 3 months. And the putter, slightly below negative. Just very much so on brand, which I like, right? I like when a player is consistent, kind of doing what we're expecting from them, right? When somebody's maybe overperforming in one category or another, you kind of sit back and wonder whether that's going to change or regress back to the mean. With Collin Morikawa, you're wondering when that putting performance is going to happen, right? When he's going to go out there, gain 2-3 strokes to the field, because over the last 2-3 events, including the Masters, the ball striking has been a win if he can go out there and gain those strokes with the flat stick. So I know the numbers on Poetribulus aren't fantastic. The year he went out there and nearly won the golf tournament, he was a gainer in 1 out of the first 3 rounds, and that was nearly enough to get him there home through 72 holes. So I like the popability. It's hard to predict when Collin Morikawa is going to go out there and have that kind of performance. But given the fact that he's been around this course 3 times, it's a course that tends to de-emphasize the putting. Over here in the key stats tab, right? Putting was down here at number 4. That's lower than usual, right? Typically, it's number 2, right? It's the number, I would say the second most important stat when it comes to modeling for most weeks. But down there at number 4 for this time around, which again is another thing helping Collin Morikawa out, right? If we're emphasizing putting a little bit less in our models, that's why he's showing up as maybe a little bit better than most would expect, given the strength of this field. Next up, we've got Max Homa, who is another player that I like at courses where off the tee is de-emphasized. This is much more about driving accuracy than it is about distance. But the thing is, for some of these bombers, I'm not as worried about the driving accuracy because they don't have to hit drivers often. The average driving distance around Harbour Town is just 270 yards. So when you're looking at some of these shots gained metrics, right, like even Morikawa, right, he's only gaining 0.5 shots gained off the tee per round. This week, I can almost guarantee you that Morikawa is going to be the best off the tee player, right? Because he's going to hit every single fairway, and there's only going to be 2 holes on the entire golf course where hitting a driver is actually going to be advantageous, right? Get you in a position where you're going to be gaining significant strokes to the field. So Morikawa is going to gain a bunch of strokes to the field. Max Homa, right? He's one of the players that's not really gaining a bunch of strokes off the tee to begin with. He's not going to have to worry about that, right? Like, everyone's going to come down to his level. He's probably still going to gain less strokes than, let's say, like a John Rahm or Scottie Scheffler off the tee, but it's going to be a smaller margin than, let's say, they're at the Masters, where off the tee mistakes are magnified with how dense some of those forested areas are. If Max Homa goes out there, just lays up a little bit more off the tee, leads into that iron play where he's gaining at an elite level, like a Morikawa, like a Scottie Scheffler out there at over a stroke per round. And the X factor here, right, is that he's almost gaining a stroke per round on the greens as well. He could win this golf tournament. He has that kind of upside. And it all comes down to, I think, the strategy, right? If he just leans into his strengths, which are exactly what we want at this course, right? We look at the key stats over here, right? It's approach play, and then it's putting on these poa-trivelous greens. Now, small sample size, right? He's right around a neutral on them, which, you know, not fantastic, right? You compare it to the 0.9 stroke baseline, right? And you're like, oh, he's horrible on these greens. But hopefully this week can go out there, be the Max Homa that's just hole and putt after putt. And with that iron play, $9,100, it just feels like he should be more expensive. Like, to me, he's a much better player than Hovland, Cam Young, Tony Finau, even Xander Schauffele at this point, and even Collin Morikawa. I mean, I'd argue that you could say that Max Homa is a better player than all of those players. So I think it's a spot worth getting to, and one that I certainly will be getting to in GPPs, just hoping that the ownership doesn't get too out of hand. Worth noting with the event history, he's played here once, has a T41 finish, but again, that was 3 years ago when he was a different player, so I don't know how much we want to look into that other than that he made the cut, right? So maybe you look at it as a positive light there. The recent form hasn't been outstanding, but still, T43 and then T6, T14, like, if that's going to be average for somebody like a Max Homa, then I think, you know, we need to reset our expectations a little bit, right? He's $9,100. He has two top 15 finishes two of his last 3 starts. Seems pretty solid for me. Our last play here is going to be Tom Kim, who I have faded for the last 2 to 3 months. I have not played much of Tom Kim, and when I have played him, it's been like 15-20% and hasn't been very much, right? We've dabbled, not gone full exposure like I do on most plays in this 8K range. But this is a Tom Kim sort of course. I played him there at Summerlin, over there for the Shriners. He won that. Played him for Wyndham, another one of these short courses where it's all about wedges and putting. Around the green play too, right? He's a really good around the green player. And all about hitting greens and setting up angles into greens. This is the Tom Kim special. This is the perfect course fit. Last week at the Masters, you know, he's a newcomer. It was his first time there. A long course that, you know, was playing wet too long. Doesn't play into his skill set whatsoever, especially as a newcomer. He makes the cut and plays pretty decently, right? You go down here to, I guess the event history is non-existent, right? But what I meant to click was the recent form over here. T16 finish, T34, T51. Like, it's not sexy, but he's going out there. He's at least playing consistent golf, right? Making cuts. And if you take a look at the recent form just a few months prior, right? It's top 10 finish after top 10 finish. He's going to get back to that, and I think part of it might just be the courses that he's playing on. It's these big boy courses where these elevated fields, you know, lush, rough, so on and so forth. We get him on a course with 2.5-inch rough, all about the accuracy off the tee, greens that he's absolutely lit up for his career so far, you know, these poa-trivelous greens. Count me in. He could win this golf tournament. In fact, I've bet him outright, just like the other 3 core plays here. So Tom Kim, right, it's his first time here. To my understanding, yeah, first time playing this golf course. Not a surprise. The form's been okay, He's pretty much gaining across all 4 categories. Slight loser with the putter, which we know is going to turn around. He's an excellent putter. We saw that especially early on in his career. And same thing over the last 12 rounds as well. So hopefully the putter comes around on these greens. He's been hot so far. Again, a small sample, because he hasn't been here all that often on tour, but it's something I'm willing to take a dabble on because of that skill set fit from tee to green. Alrighty guys, that is all I've got for this week's Core Plays video. Before we hop on out of here, go ahead, comment down below your winner for this week. For me, let's try and take it a little bit lower down the board. We'll go with Max Homa. So Max Homa, I like the iron play. I really like the electricity with the putter, and hopefully on a surface that he hasn't really lit it up on for his career, he can go out there and bring us some top end upside. But go ahead, let me know down in the comments who you're going to be taking. And as per usual, I appreciate all the support here on the channel. Make sure to go ahead, smash that like button on your way out of here. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so you don't miss any of the content in the future. We'll have value plays dropping on later on tonight because I'll be there on site. Gonna make sure to get out the content nice, bright, and early. We're leaving there at like 7 a.m. there on Wednesday morning. So gonna be a lot of fun. Looking forward to bringing you guys the insight from on the course. But like I said, appreciate all the support, and I'll catch you guys next time. Best of luck with those lineups, those outright bets, and let's get this cash.